My sister is pregnant. Again. The words dropped into the silence of the dining room like a bomb, shattering the clinking of cutlery and the hum of small talk. Melissa stood at the head of the table, one hand resting dramatically on her stomach, her smile wide and glittering like a stage light. For a moment, the room froze. Then, just as quickly, it erupted into applause. My parents clapped the loudest, beaming with pride as if Melissa had just won an award instead of announcing her 5th pregnancy. Relatives cheered, cousins exchanged knowing looks, and my father raised his glass like he was toasting royalty. Everyone clapped. Everyone except me. I sat there, my fork pressed against the edge of my plate, watching Melissa soak up the attention she craved like a thirsty flower. She fluttered her lashes, tilted her head, and pretended to blush while my mother squealed about being a grandmother again. But all I could think about were the diapers, the bottles, the endless nights I had already lived through 4 times. Because whenever Melissa had a baby, she didn't become a mother. I did. I glanced at the children scattered around the living room, Melissa's 4 kids sprawled in front of the TV. Who had helped them with homework? Who had packed their lunches? Who had held them while they cried because their mother was too tired, too busy, too distracted? Me, always me. My chest tightened. I could already see the cycle repeating. Another crib in my tiny apartment. Another round of school projects signed with my handwriting instead of Melissa's. Another childhood raised by someone who never asked for it. Melissa's voice sliced through my thoughts. We weren't planning this one, but I guess life has a funny way of blessing us, right? She rested her hand on Michael's shoulder, her oldest, now 10 years old. His eyes darted toward me, as if he knew what this announcement meant. His smile was weak, forced, because he knew who would be the one filling the gaps again. I gripped my fork tighter. My mother's gaze found me from across the table, sharp and expectant. Rachel, aren't you going to congratulate your sister? I forced my lips into something resembling a smile. Congratulations, I said flatly, the word bitter on my tongue. Melissa smirked, as if she could hear the resentment beneath my tone. Thank you, Rachel. You've always been such a help with the kids. I know I can count on you again. Count on me. Always those words. Not because I wanted to. Not because I had a choice. But because Melissa knew she could keep dumping her responsibilities onto me, and our parents would cheer her on for it. The applause continued, my relatives laughing and raising their glasses, and all I could do was sit there, silent, angry, invisible. Memories flashed in my mind like a cruel montage, holding her newborn at 19 while Melissa went clubbing, skipping my college orientation to babysit her 2nd child, working extra shifts to pay for groceries because she blew her money on clothes. I had lived the last decade as a mother without ever giving birth. And now, Melissa had the audacity to act like she was the one doing the hard work. The dinner dragged on. The adults debated baby names while Melissa basked in her spotlight. My parents hung on her every word, gushing about how strong she was, how brave she was, how lucky the family was to have her. Not once did anyone look at me and say the truth, that I had been the one holding this family together while Melissa chased freedom. My hands trembled under the table. A storm brewed inside me, words screaming to break free, but I swallowed them down. I knew if I spoke now, they'd twist it into jealousy, into selfishness, into proof that I wasn't supportive enough. So instead, I let the storm stay silent. As Melissa raised her glass in another dramatic toast, I leaned back in my chair, heart pounding. My lips parted, barely moving, as I whispered the only words that escaped me. Not again. Fairness never lived in our house. From the time I was little, my parents made it clear Melissa was delicate, precious, special. I was everything else. I remember one Saturday morning when I was only 8, Melissa, just 6 at the time, had spilled juice across the kitchen floor. Sticky orange streaks glistened under the sunlight. My mother stormed in, hands on her hips. Rachel, she snapped, clean that up before it stains. I blinked, pointing toward my sister, but Melissa spilled it, no excuses. Be useful. Her tone was final, sharp as a knife. Melissa giggled, skipping off toward the living room where cartoons blared. Not a single word of scolding, not a drop of responsibility. That was the rhythm of our childhood. Melissa was pampered, shielded, excused. I was tasked, burdened, overlooked. When she refused to do homework, my parents said, "She's creative, not studious." When she threw tantrums in stores, they laughed it off. Melissa just has a fiery spirit. But when I forgot to fold the laundry or brought home a grade less than perfect, I was scolded as if I had embarrassed the entire family. The message was carved deep. Melissa could do no wrong. I, on the other hand, could never do enough right. By the time I was 10, chores filled every corner of my day. Dishes stacked higher than me, floors scrubbed until my knees ached, trash carried out in bags heavier than my small arms could handle. Melissa lounged while I worked. She sat painting her nails, reading magazines, humming along to the radio while I swept around her feet. Sometimes she'd grin and whisper, "Better hurry before Mom sees you slacking." I wanted to scream, to ask why I was the maid and she the princess. But every time I tried to protest, my father's eyes narrowed. "Don't start drama, Rachel. We all know Melissa is more sensitive. She needs special care, sensitive." That word was their excuse for everything. One memory haunts me most. It was my 12th birthday. I woke early, hoping just once to be celebrated. Instead, I found balloons, cake, and gifts scattered across the living room. But they weren't for me. They were for Melissa, who had scored well on a school art project. My mother clapped proudly, declaring, "We must encourage her talents." My father took pictures. Melissa twirled, basking in the glow. I stood in the corner, my birthday forgotten, holding a dish rag in my hand. That night, lying in bed, I whispered to myself, "One day, someone will see me. Someone will know what I've done." The seeds of unfairness had already taken root, seeds that would one day grow into a forest of resentment. I was only 16 when I first became a mother. Not legally, not biologically, but in every way that mattered. Melissa had just turned 14 when she announced she was pregnant. The family dinner table went silent, forks clattering against plates. My mother gasped. My father's face drained of color, and then slowly, their expressions softened. "She's too young," my mother whispered. "We can't blame her. She doesn't know better." My father nodded grimly. "We'll figure it out." But we didn't mean all of us. It meant me. When Melissa's baby, little Jason, arrived, the weight of responsibility landed squarely on my shoulders. Diapers, feeding, sleepless nights. While my classmates were studying for tests or going to parties, I was rocking a crying infant in the middle of the night, begging him to sleep so I could finish my homework. Melissa, she vanished into weekends with friends, posting pictures online, makeup perfect, drinks in hand. Whenever I asked why she wasn't home, my parents rushed to her defense. "She's just a kid, Rachel. Don't be so hard on her. Rachel, she needs freedom too. Don't hold her back." Freedom for her meant prison for me. I remember one night vividly. Jason was screaming, red-faced and inconsolable. I bounced him on my hip, tears stinging my eyes from exhaustion. Melissa stumbled in hours later, smelling of perfume and smoke. "Here," I said bitterly, shoving the baby toward her. "He's your son." Melissa waved a dismissive hand. "Ugh, you're better at calming him. Just do it." She collapsed on the couch, pulling out her phone. I stared at her, fury boiling. "You can't just ignore him. He's your responsibility." My mother's voice cut in from the kitchen. "Rachel, lower your voice. Don't stress Melissa. She's been through enough." Enough. That word again. Enough excuses, enough shielding. So I stayed up that night. And the next. By the time I turned 17, I knew how to soothe colic, how to make formula in the dark, how to carry a sleeping child while balancing textbooks. I had learned motherhood in the harshest classroom, sacrifice. But with every diaper, every sleepless night, every defense of Melissa's so-called fragility, resentment hardened inside me. I was losing my own youth, piece by piece, raising a child that wasn't mine, and my parents still called me ungrateful. Jason had barely turned 3 when Melissa announced she was pregnant again. The family's reaction was the same as before. Shock, then excuses. My parents wrung their hands, whispering about how life is hard and Melissa just needs support. But once again, support didn't mean them. It meant me. Melissa's second baby, a little girl named Emma, arrived just as I was graduating high school. Only I never made it to the ceremony. That morning, Melissa had disappeared again. No one knew where she was. Emma, barely a few weeks old, wailed endlessly in her crib. My parents panicked, thrusting her into my arms. "Rachel, you'll have to stay home," my mother said firmly. "You're the only one she listens to." "But it's my graduation." My voice cracked. "I worked for this." My father avoided my eyes. "Family comes first. We'll pick up your diploma for you." I stood frozen, cap and gown hanging on the back of my chair, while Emma screamed in my arms. Outside, my classmates were lining up, laughing, tossing their hats into the air, and I sat at home, rocking a baby that wasn't mine, tears sliding down my face as my dreams dissolved. That night, Melissa breezed in, hair styled, dress glittering. "Sorry," she said casually. I lost track of time. I stared at her, raw fury shaking me. "I missed my graduation because of you." She rolled her eyes. "Relax, it's just a ceremony." "You'll live." My mother stepped in, sharp. "Don't fight. Rachel, you did the right thing. Melissa needs time to adjust. Time to adjust." How many years of my life was I supposed to sacrifice for her adjustment? While my friends planned colleges and careers, I juggled babysitting, part-time jobs, and exhaustion. I carried Emma on my hip while feeding Jason his dinner. I studied for exams with lullabies humming in the background. Melissa floated in and out, chasing attention, shrugging responsibility. And my parents applauded her courage while ignoring my sacrifice. That night, when the house was finally quiet, I sat by the window with Emma asleep in my arms. I looked at the stars, wondering if they could see me, if anyone could. My chest ached with resentment, deeper and sharper than ever before. I had lost my graduation, my freedom, my chance at being a teenager, and all because my sister decided her life mattered more than mine. Humiliation doesn't fade. It repeats. Melissa's third pregnancy hit our family like a storm we'd all seen coming, but no one tried to stop. She was barely 20 by then, still reckless, still floating through life without consequence. And once again, the burden landed on me. I remember standing in the kitchen, Emma tugging at my sleeve while Jason scribbled with crayons on the floor. My mother cleared her throat, her eyes already on me. "Rachel," she said firmly, "with the new baby coming, we'll need you to step up again." My chest tightened. Again. Always again. "Why is it always me?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. "Why do I have to raise her kids?" Melissa sauntered in just then, hand resting lazily on her stomach, a smirk tugging at her lips. "Because you're good at it." The words dripped with mockery, but my parents didn't hear it that way. They nodded in agreement, as though she had just delivered some profound truth. "Melissa's right," my father said. "You've always had a nurturing side. It's natural for you." Natural? No, it was forced. A survival skill carved into me because they refused to hold their own daughter accountable. When the baby, little Noah, arrived, the cycle repeated exactly as before. Sleepless nights, bottles, diapers, endless crying that only stopped when he was in my arms. Melissa vanished to parties, blaming postpartum stress when confronted. My parents defended her at every turn. One night, overwhelmed, I broke. Noah was screaming, Emma tugging at my dress, Jason whining for food. Tears burned down my face as I rocked the baby, my voice cracking. I can't do this anymore. Melissa lounged on the couch, scrolling through her phone, unbothered. She lifted her gaze, smirked, and said, "Yes, you can. You always do." Her confidence in my captivity was worse than the screaming. She knew I would pick up the pieces. She counted on it. My mother touched my shoulder gently. "Rachel, don't overreact. You're stronger than you think." That was their way of saying, suffer quietly. Carry it. Don't complain. I swallowed the pain, rocking Noah until he finally quieted. But inside, the humiliation sharpened into something else. Something heavier, darker. Because for the first time I realized this wasn't just unfair. It was a prison, and they had no intention of letting me out. Hope often comes from outside the walls we're trapped in. For me, it came in the form of Sophie. We met at the cafe where I worked part-time between babysitting shifts. She was vibrant, outspoken, and funny in a way that made the weight on my chest feel lighter. Unlike my family, Sophie actually saw me. One night after closing, I sat slumped over a cup of coffee, exhausted from another day of diapers and tantrums. Sophie slid into the booth across from me, studying my face. "You look dead," she said bluntly. I laughed weakly. "I feel dead. What happened this time?" Melissa had another meltdown. My parents rushed to comfort her, then handed me the kids. I stirred my coffee slowly. "It's always me," Sophie's brow furrowed. "But why you?" "You're not their mother," I shrugged. "Because someone has to, and apparently that someone is always me." She leaned forward, her voice firm. "No, Rachel. They don't want your help. They want your sacrifice." The words hit me like a punch. I blinked, stunned. "My sacrifice?" "Yes," she said. "You're the easy one. The dependable one. They know you'll give up everything if they ask. That's not love, it's exploitation." I sat back silent, her words echoing through me. No one had ever said it out loud before. Later that week, after another brutal night of babysitting while Melissa went out, I called Sophie, my voice breaking. "I can't keep doing this." "Then stop," she replied simply. "It's not that easy," I whispered. "They'll call me selfish." "Good," she shot back. "Maybe it's time you are. Selfish enough to save yourself." Her words planted something inside me, a seed of resistance. For the first time I began to wonder, what if I walked away? What if I chose myself over them? That thought terrified me, but it also thrilled me. By the time Melissa had her fourth child, I wasn't surprised anymore. I was numb. The house filled with chaos again, bottles, diapers, crying, exhaustion. And once again, my parents turned to me. "Rachel, you'll have to help," my mother said, as if it were a command written into law. I tried to set boundaries this time. "No, I have work. I have a life too," her eyes narrowed. "Don't be selfish." "Melissa needs you, selfish." That word struck like a whip. Every time I tried to defend myself, they twisted it into guilt. Melissa smirked, rocking casually in a chair while her newborn cried in my arms. "You're good at this, Rachel. Why fight it?" My father added, "Family sticks together." Don't forget that. But it wasn't sticking together. It was me carrying all of them while they watched from the sidelines. That night, after everyone else was asleep, I sat in my room with a small notebook and pen. I began to write. At first, it was just venting. Anger spilled across the pages, memories of humiliation, details of every sacrifice they had demanded. But soon, the notebook became more than a diary. It became a plan. I started keeping track of dates, events, moments of manipulation, proof that I wasn't crazy, proof that I had given more than anyone could expect. And as the pages filled, something inside me shifted. I wasn't just documenting my pain anymore. I was plotting my escape. Gossip spreads faster than truth. And in my family, it always cut the deepest. It started with little comments at reunions. An aunt leaned down to me one evening, her perfume thick and suffocating. "You've done such a wonderful job raising those kids, Rachel. Honestly, they feel more like yours than Melissa's." The words stung, not because they were wrong, but because they were right. I smiled weakly, pretending it didn't burn. Later, in the kitchen, I overheard two cousins whispering. "She's basically their mom." "Yeah, Melissa just runs around while Rachel does everything." I froze, hands gripping the counter. Basically their mom. The phrase echoed in my skull. Everyone saw it. Everyone knew it. And yet, no one said it aloud where it mattered. The cruelest cut came one afternoon when I passed Melissa's room. She was on the phone laughing. Honestly, I don't know how people do it without help. I'm lucky. Rachel takes care of the kids. Gives me so much freedom. Freedom. That's what my sacrifice had become for her. I clenched my fists, forcing myself to walk away, but the words stuck like glass under my skin. That night, I opened my journal again. I wrote it all down. Exact words, exact moments, every insult disguised as a compliment. I wasn't just venting anymore. I was building a record, proof of years of exploitation no one could deny. Every whispered comment, every time Melissa boasted about her freedom, every sacrifice I had made. Page by page, the journal transformed from my secret grief into my secret weapon. I didn't know when or how I'd use it. But I knew this much. The truth had power, and one day it would set me free. Independence doesn't roar into your life. It arrives quietly, in the form of a set of keys. I remember standing outside my new apartment, keys trembling in my hand. The building wasn't glamorous, peeling paint, flickering hallway lights, but it was mine. My space. My freedom. When I turned the lock and stepped inside, the empty rooms echoed with possibility. For the first time, I wasn't defined by chores or children that weren't mine. I was just Rachel. I sank to the floor, tears slipping down my cheeks, not from sadness, but from relief. Of course, my family didn't see it that way. "You're abandoning us," my mother spat over the phone when I gave her the address. "How can you be so selfish?" "Selfish?" I whispered. "For wanting a life of my own?" Melissa chimed in from the background, her voice dripping with mockery. "Good luck raising yourself. You'll come crawling back when it gets hard." But I didn't crawl back. Not even when the loneliness hit. Not even when the silence felt like punishment. I forced myself to stay, until the night Melissa showed up at my door. I opened it to find 3 of her kids standing there, clutching backpacks, Melissa grinning like she'd solved a puzzle. "I've got plans tonight." "They'll be fine with you," rage flooded through me. "No, Melissa. This is my home, my life. You can't just..." She waved a hand. "Relax, you're good at this. You always are." And just like that, she left. The kids' eyes looked up at me, confused, waiting. My chest ached with both love and fury. I cared for them, but I hated what she was doing to me. That night, after I tucked them in, I sat at my desk and wrote one sentence in bold across the top of a new journal page. This has to end. Explosions don't always start with fire. Sometimes they start with applause. The family dinner was loud, crowded, and suffocating. The table groaned under food, glasses clinked, laughter filled the air. I sat silently, watching Melissa hold court like a queen. Halfway through dessert, she tapped her glass with a spoon, standing dramatically. "I have an announcement," she declared, her smile wide, her eyes glowing with fake humility. "I'm pregnant again." Gasps, cheers, applause. My parents beamed as though she had just cured cancer. Relatives clapped. Some even stood. Everyone celebrated. Except me. I froze, fork trembling in my hand, rage bubbling up like lava. My chest tightened. My throat burned. Not again. Not this time. Melissa basked in the attention, bowing her head as compliments poured in. "So brave. Such a blessing. A true mother." That last phrase snapped something inside me. I slammed my fork down. The room went silent. Every face turned toward me. "Brave?" I spat. "A blessing? A true mother? Are you kidding me?" Melissa blinked, stunned. "Rachel, what's your problem?" "My problem?" I stood, hands shaking but voice rising. "My problem is that I've been raising your kids for years while you play pretend. I missed my graduation because I was babysitting. I worked nights and mornings, sacrificed everything, and for what? So you could call yourself free?" Gasps rippled across the room. My parents shifted uncomfortably, but I didn't stop. "You all cheer for her, but who changes the diapers? Who feeds them, bathes them, tucks them in? Me, I did, not her. And I'm done." Melissa's face twisted. "You're jealous. Jealous?" I laughed bitterly. "Of what? Of being used like unpaid labor? Of being erased while you take the credit? No, Melissa, I'm not jealous. I'm finished." My mother stood, voice sharp. "Rachel, sit down. You're making a scene." I turned to her, fire in my chest. "No, she's the one who's been making a scene for years, playing mother while I did the work. Tonight I'm telling the truth, and the truth is, I'm done being your maid." The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. Relatives exchanged shocked glances. A few looked down at their plates, ashamed. Melissa's smile finally cracked, her mask slipping. "You'll regret this," she hissed. I stared at her, steady and unflinching. "No, Melissa. One day you'll regret it." And with that, I sat back down, the weight of years crashing around me. For the first time in my life, the room wasn't applauding her. They were staring at me. Chaos doesn't creep in quietly. It storms the room like thunder. The second my words settled, my parents leapt to Melissa's defense. "Rachel, enough," my father barked, his face red with anger. "Melissa is doing her best. You're cruel to speak like this." My mother's voice sliced sharper than his. "You're bitter. Always have been. Jealous of your sister's life," I almost laughed. "Jealous of missing my graduation? Of wiping tears and changing diapers that weren't mine? Of being invisible while Melissa soaked in praise?" No, I wasn't jealous. I was robbed. Melissa seized the moment, her voice shrill. "See, I told you she's unstable. She hates me because everyone loves me." I stayed seated, steady, calm where they were chaotic. "You want to talk about unstable? Let's talk about truth." Slowly, I pulled my journals from my bag. The room fell silent as I opened one and flipped to a page, reading aloud. June 12th. Missed my graduation ceremony. Babysat Melissa's second child all night. Parents said I should be proud. Gasps echoed. Melissa's face drained of color. I turned another page. August 4th. Melissa went to a party. I worked a double shift, then came home to find her baby at my door. Parents said I should support my sister. One by one, I laid down photos too. Me holding the kids at birthdays, me at school plays, me instead of their mother. The silence grew heavy, and then a voice cut through it. My cousin Lily. Sharp-tongued, fearless Lily, who rarely picked sides. "She's right," Lily said, eyes blazing. "We've all seen it." Rachel raised those kids, not Melissa. We whispered about it for years. "But tonight it's out in the open," whispers rippled. Some relatives nodded, some avoided eye contact, but the truth was undeniable now. Melissa trembled with fury. "You betrayed me, Lily." Lily folded her arms. "No, Melissa. You betrayed Rachel. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the one standing alone. When the shouting dulled into background noise, I sat there, staring at the mess unraveling around me. I thought about the birthdays I never had time to celebrate, the school dances I skipped, the friends I lost because I was too busy babysitting. I thought about the dreams I folded up like paper and tucked away, because someone else's children always came first. Years. My entire youth traded away. Not for love, not for gratitude, but for silence and expectation. And yet, as the weight of those memories pressed down, I didn't feel broken. I felt stronger. Each scar was proof I had survived. Each stolen moment had carved resilience into my bones. Melissa shouted in the corner. My parents tried to hush her. Relatives argued. But their noise couldn't shake me anymore, because I finally realized what they stole from me could never define me. I wasn't their maid. I wasn't Melissa's safety net. I wasn't the invisible daughter. I was Rachel, and I was done being erased. The room fell quiet again when I finally stood. My hands didn't tremble this time. My voice was steady. I turned to Melissa, her face blotchy with anger and panic. "This child is yours, Melissa, not mine. Don't look at me again." She gasped like I had struck her. You can't do this. You're my sister." "No," I said, my voice sharper than I'd ever heard it. "I was your babysitter, your crutch, your excuse. But I was never treated like a sister, and now I'm free." My parents froze, shock plastered on their faces. For once, they had no quick defense, no lecture, no scolding words. Melissa crumbled, tears spilling. "Rachel, please, what am I supposed to do without you?" I looked at her, my heart aching but not breaking. "You'll do what every real mother does. You'll figure it out." The silence that followed was heavier than all the years behind me, but it was a silence I welcomed. For the first time in my life, I wasn't bound by their expectations. I was free. The night air outside felt different, almost holy. Cool, crisp, alive with freedom. I walked away from that house, Sophie by my side. She slipped her arm through mine, steady and warm. "You did it," she whispered. I nodded, tears brimming. But they weren't tears of pain. They were tears of release. As we walked, I reflected on everything. Family had stolen my youth, my milestones, my joy. But in return, they gave me something else: strength, resilience, the fire to carve out a life on my own terms. Blood had chained me, but love, the real kind, was what set me free. Sophie's loyalty, Lily's courage, even my own quiet determination. I realized something profound. Family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by choice, by the people who stand beside you in truth, not the ones who bury you in lies. All the humiliation, all the years of sacrifice, they had shaped me. Not into their servant, not into their shadow, but into someone powerful enough to walk away. I stopped on the sidewalk, turned my face toward the stars, and let the words spill like a vow. They once called me the babysitter. But today, I call myself free. And for the first time in forever, I believed it.